whatever. They're all fiat rails, and Tether is just another fiat rail. So there's no shame in adding that, or there's nothing wrong with it because if you can buy Bitcoin with dollars and Strike, Swan, or whatever, why can't you buy Bitcoin with Stibbles in Aqua? It's the same line of thinking. But yeah, there are 400 million users that we can get into Bitcoin that already know how to use the QR code and transact, and they know what an address is. So we just have to do it better and use Liquid and everything else that is in the Bitcoin ecosystem, not as an altcoin chain.
Samson Mow, CEO of JAN3, says Bitcoin is changing global finance and headed for a historic revaluation. Mow believes Bitcoin will reach $400,000 to $500,000, not as hype, but due to systemic change and growing monetary mistrust. If that happens, Bitcoin will surpass gold's $20 trillion lead as the second largest store of value. This is impressive for a decentralized digital asset created less than 10 years ago. This change is existential, not economic. Constant money printing and political meddling are devaluing fiat currencies. Bitcoin is a transparent, international, censorship-resistant, fixed supply, manipulation-proof alternative. With sovereign states, institutions, and individual investors adopting Bitcoin and capital inflow increasing, Mao emphasizes that this is a structural shift rather than a trend. The implications suggest a financial uprising against centralization. Even though most investors view Bitcoin as speculative, Mao believes its philosophical foundations, financial self-sovereignty, freedom of ownership, and inflation protection, make it valuable. Bitcoin's popularity is rising rapidly in a world growing wary of centralized power, political and economic. Many see it as a way out of a broken system, not just an asset class. Mo claims that we are experiencing the greatest wealth transfer in modern history, but most won't realize it until it's too late. As traditional financial systems collapse under unmanageable debt and public distrust, Bitcoin quietly absorbs that capital. An urgent global wealth reallocation, not a slow migration. Whether Bitcoin is real or sustainable is irrelevant. That argument ended. As the old system deteriorates and a new monetary order is implemented, who will adapt and who will be left behind?
Yeah, so I've said it a number of times, but I think this is a really big game changer. There are a lot of voices out there on Twitter or X saying, it's just an executive order. They're not going to buy. It's just moving seized funds and not selling. But I think they're missing the bigger picture that it is a seismic shift in the perception of Bitcoin. And I think Adam Back said it the best that it is a major shift of the Overton window. If not, it's like a destruction of the Overton window that, Bitcoin is legitimate now, not just as an investment asset, but as a reserve asset and something that government should have because it is of the utmost strategic importance. The ETFs, I would say, shifted that already and made it a legit asset class. You can't have BlackRock coming into the picture, the largest asset manager on the planet, launching a Bitcoin ETF that is their most successful ETF to date and one of their biggest now, and not understand that that has changed something. But this has changed everything because we haven't yet seen that nation state race to accumulate Bitcoin, right? You've had a few small countries buying, El Salvador buying, and Bhutan mining, but that hasn't really triggered a race because they're just not big enough, right? Everyone looks to the US for guidance on everything and where things are going. And that was the same case for the ETFs that like the Hong Kong and Australian ones didn't launch until the SEC cleared it in the US and then they went. It's the same thing for this. Like you have to have the signal from a major world power that Bitcoin is important to them before everything else trickles downstream and people really start to follow significantly. But I think this EO is that step. And then now we have Cynthia Lummis's Bitcoin bill that will actively implement buying in addition to the reserves they have that are held. But the rate at which things are developing is just so much faster. Like you had, a few U.S. senators posting pictures of themselves with laser eyes yesterday, and one of the dogs has laser eyes too. Like, I didn't see that coming, but maybe we're gonna start seeing even more. But I'm here for it. I think it was a necessity, and the U.S. is seemingly on a track to recovery from financial mismanagement, let's say. I don't see the same happening in Europe and other places. They're all sort of in denial, but at least the Trump admin has sort of recognized the problem. That's why they're trying to stop the death spiral. That's why they've implemented the Department of Government Efficiency. This is why they're trying to lower the 10-year rates. They realize that the debt is unsustainable. Inflation is a symptom and something has to be done. And they're trying these other things, but Bitcoin is the only solution that will fix these things. So, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it's a bit surprising the US was the next big one. I thought we'd have another big country, and that's kind of what we've been trying to accomplish at JAN3. But what we've encountered is just everyone wants to wait for the US, and there's just a lot of fear of career risk. And with this shift in the US landscape, I think there is no more career risk. And that alleviation of the fear about doing something with Bitcoin, it just hasn't made its way around the world yet. Many Bitcoiners were expecting, like, we're gonna get an Omega candle right now with the EO, but I think you need some massive change before that is going to happen, like retail coming in or normal people understanding Bitcoin and or even just the action of buying either from the US or other countries, and that hasn't happened yet. The EO is just sort of news and it's not well understood, and the impact is not well understood. Yeah, so the vision behind Aqua is that we can get Bitcoin into the hands of everyone in the world. I think the only way to accomplish that is with a self-sovereign, self-custodial wallet that people control it fully, like end to end. Any custodial offering, you're subject to all the regulations in all these different places, and it's just almost impossible to grow very rapidly because you need to, create an entity everywhere you go and comply with the regulations to hold money for other people. So Aqua is really the only way forward. And the way we're trying to build it is that it gives you that same custodial feeling, like you're using a Venmo or something. It just works. We just use third-party providers to do all the swaps and conversions that ideally don't require a lot of friction, like onboarding or anything like that. You just use it. And so far, I think we've been able to reach a pretty good level, and we're just looking for more partners to work with that can help us deliver that vision. But the idea is that we can tap into the market that Tether has opened up, the 400 million stablecoin users, and get them into Aqua and Bitcoin. I would say one of the reasons why um, Tether is so dominant on other chains, like altcoin chains, is because they embraced it. And I think we're the only real Bitcoin wallet that has put Tether front and center in the interface with Bitcoin. Everyone else is kind of, we're Bitcoin only. But we are happy to meet people where they are and their understanding of everything, not just Bitcoin, but money and stable coins. So if they want stable coins, they should be able to use it just like any other rail, like SEPA or ACH or whatever. They're all fiat rails, and Tether is just another fiat rail. So there's no shame in adding that, or there's nothing wrong with it because if you can buy Bitcoin with dollars in Strike, Swan, or whatever, why can't you buy Bitcoin with stibbles in Aqua? It's the same line of thinking. But yeah, there are 400 million users that we can get into Bitcoin that already know how to use the QR code and transact, and they know what an address is. So we just have to do it better and use Liquid and everything else that is in the Bitcoin ecosystem, not as an altcoin chain.
The US is starting to embrace the rapid transformation of Bitcoin from a fringe asset to a global financial cornerstone. But Europe is lagging behind. Businesses, governments, and even nation-states are taking notice of Bitcoin's fixed supply and decentralized structure as sovereign debt grows and inflation threatens the stability of fiat currency. The story is changing. Bitcoin is now viewed as a systemic alternative, a hard currency that is poised to challenge gold's long-standing hegemony, rather than as a speculative tool. The urgency surrounding adoption is growing as price targets of less than $500,000 are now being included in mainstream forecasts. Millions of coins are being permanently lost, exchanges are being depleted, and big organizations like Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy are still aggressively acquiring Bitcoin, locking up years' worth of future availability. The supply is getting tighter at a historic rate. The market is nearing a crucial turning point as supply becomes scarcer and demand increases. Words like Omega Candle, which refers to a predicted approximately $100,000 spike in a matter of days, emphasize how quickly this change could take place and possibly redefine global capital flows in an instant. While central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, lose credibility due to growing privacy and trust concerns, stablecoins gain traction as usable digital dollars. The larger picture shows that the fiat paradigm is collapsing and that Bitcoin is emerging as a robust monetary infrastructure in addition to digital gold. Higher price points, especially around $500,000, would probably normalize volatility, turning Bitcoin into a stable reserve instrument in addition to a high-growth asset.
Yeah, well, there is actually a shortage. I've been to Argentina before, and we have a large contingent of our team there. And actually, it's funny news. Like, I think our biggest user base is in Argentina for Aqua. So it's very interesting. But there's a shortage of dollars there. Like, if you want physical dollars, there's not enough. Even the banks have a shortage of dollars too. So, like, Tether really solves a problem in that they can give the unbanked access to dollar value. And that is a big game changer that most Bitcoiners haven't fully realized yet because they're so focused on pushing Bitcoin adoption. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but your average guy in Argentina, he definitely knows what the dollar is and he wants a digital version of it. He doesn't care where it is. He just needs that because it's a necessity. And we should give it to them and we should get them into Bitcoin, not just say, stop using dollars. Bitcoin standard all the way only. Well, El Salvador also adopted Bitcoin out of necessity, right? They needed something to rebrand with and to get attention, right? And through attention, you get investment and you get development and everything else. I'm not downplaying the other things they've done, like lower the crime and make it a safer place, but definitely Bitcoin was a big part of their strategic rebranding, and it did bring them a lot of benefits and led to a lot of new opportunities for the country. So the US is adopting it also out of necessity to fix their economic problems. And El Salvador did the same, but to boost their country and kind of get attention. So I think there's very different things at play in each one, but definitely you can say like the US is going to make a bigger difference because it's just a bigger country that will have a far bigger impact on the Bitcoin adoption around the world because El Salvador is small. And when we go out to engage with other countries, we always talk about El Salvador as like the first one and they're doing this and they're on a Bitcoin standard. But it doesn't seem to matter that much. Everyone is still looking to the US and what's happening there. It's just, you always want to look at the bigger guy and see what they're doing. Yeah, so the Omega candle is a 100K candle, and a God candle, or also called a Godzilla candle, is a 10K candle. But the Omega candle, it should be green, but it might be red. Like the one of the first God candles, I think, was a red God candle, like 10K down. But it just goes to show that the Bitcoin price movements are becoming bigger and bigger, and people are not always aware of these movements. But I still see people like poking at me and saying, "Hey, where's your God candle that you've been talking about?" And my reaction is like, "Go look at the chart. There have been like 8 or 9 of them so far." But people aren't really aware, and they're not going to be aware of the Omega candle too. Maybe they will, who knows? But like the indication is that if we're seeing God candles regularly, 10K daily movements, it's probably going to bring us to a 100K daily movement relatively soon. And 100K is just, 10x. Bitcoin has done 17x in the past with a totally different macroeconomic landscape than today. Like zero Bitcoin national adoption, no strategic Bitcoin reserves, no talk about issuing Bitcoin bonds, and no talk about buying 1 million Bitcoin from the US. So it's completely within the realm of possibility that you get a 100K candle soon, maybe this year. So I think that the biggest thing is the Omega candle is saying be ready for this when it happens because things are changing very, very rapidly.
Bitcoin is attracting global attention again as its price approaches $100,000. This is not just market excitement. It signals a major shift in financial and political support for digital assets. The US is finally embracing cryptocurrency after years of caution. The Trump campaign is pushing stablecoin legislation, and the Fed is reversing Biden administration restrictions to position the US as a leader in next-generation finance. After ending the cryptocurrency regulatory war, Trump's crypto czar, David Sachs, is leading this shift. His bold prediction: a Trump-era economic boom powered by deregulation and cryptocurrencies. This policy change follows Bitcoin pioneers like Samson Mow, who have predicted that Bitcoin will be a profitable asset and the foundation of a new international monetary system. Bitcoin is replacing gold as Mows' preferred store of value due to its 21 million supply, digital portability, and resistance to inflation and political manipulation. An estimated 5 million Bitcoin have been lost forever, making scarcity a market reality. As big businesses and sovereign states compete for share, cheap accumulation is ending. Washington's shift and Wall Street's acceptance of Bitcoin signal a new era in finance where decentralized digital assets are crucial. As the price outlook approaches $400,000 to $500,000, participation becomes crucial. This is about positioning as the legacy financial system changes in real time, not just profits. Institutions move, laws change, supply is decreasing. Opportunity is fading daily while it's there. Instead of whether Bitcoin will change the financial landscape, the question is whether you can participate.